Kate Morrison pressed her back against the cold metal wall as another explosion shook the ship. Red emergency lights flashed in the dark hallway, and she could hear the sound of alien voices getting closer. Her hand shook as she held her plasma rifle, but there was nowhere left to run. The UES Defiant was dying around her. 3 days ago, it had been part of the largest human fleet ever assembled. Now Kate was alone on a broken ship, floating in the darkness of space while enemy vessels surrounded her like hungry wolves. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about what had happened at New Terra. The Zephyrian Empire had come without warning, their massive ships blotting out the sun. Admiral Jake Collins had fought bravely, but his fleet was no match for the alien armada. General Lisa Parker had led the ground defense until the very end, but even her best soldiers could not stop the invasion. Kate was just a weapons specialist from Detroit. She had joined the military to see the galaxy, not to be the last human alive. But here she was, hiding in the corridors of a dead ship while aliens hunted her down. The Defiant shuddered again as another boarding pod attached to the hull. Kate could hear the sound of cutting tools as the Zephyrians burned through the metal. Soon they would be inside, and then it would all be over. She had seen what happened to other species when the Zephyrians conquered them. Some were enslaved, forced to work in mines or factories. Others were simply killed if they were too dangerous or too proud to submit. The lucky ones were allowed to live on reservation worlds, shadows of their former selves. Kate pushed herself away from the wall and started moving down the corridor. If she was going to die, she would not die hiding. She had one place left to go, the experimental weapons lab where Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been working before the battle. Rodriguez had been a brilliant scientist, but she was also secretive. Kate had delivered supplies to her lab many times, but the doctor never explained what she was building. The other officers whispered that it was some kind of new weapon, something that might turn the tide of the war. The lab was 3 decks down, past the engineering section where fire still burned from the battle. Kate moved carefully through the smoke, her rifle ready. She could hear the Zephyrians moving through other parts of the ship, but they had not reached this area yet. When she finally reached the lab, Kate found the door sealed. She used her security codes to open it, hoping they still worked. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a room full of strange equipment. Dr. Rodriguez lay on the floor near a large machine. Kate knelt beside her and checked for a pulse, but the scientist was already dead. A piece of shrapnel from the battle had caught her in the chest. Her eyes were still open, staring at the machine she had died trying to protect. Kate looked at the device Rodriguez had been working on. It looked like a chair with dozens of cables and sensors attached to it. A computer screen nearby showed readings she did not understand, but one message was clear. Neural interface ready. Authorization required. She heard footsteps in the corridor outside. The Zephyrians had found her location. Kate looked at the machine again, then at Rodriguez's body. Whatever the doctor had been building, she had thought it was important enough to die for. Kate sat in the chair and began connecting the cables to the neural ports behind her ears. Every military person had these ports installed for communication and data access, but she had never used them for anything like this. The footsteps grew louder. Kate could hear alien voices speaking in their harsh language. They were right outside the door now. She pressed her hand against the authorization panel. The machine came to life with a low hum, and the screen changed to show new information. Subject connected, beginning data transfer. The door to the lab exploded inward. 3 Zephyrian soldiers entered, their weapons raised. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Their armor was sleek and advanced, making Kate's human equipment look primitive. Behind them came their commander, a figure even taller than the others. War Prime Zethar wore the red markings of high rank, and his presence filled the room with authority. He had personally led the conquest of 17 worlds. "Human," Zethar said in accented English. "You will surrender now. Your species has fought. Well, but the battle is over. Submit to the Empire and you may yet live." Kate felt something happening in her mind. The machine was feeding her information, but it was more than just data. She could see images, hear voices, feel emotions that were not her own. The neural interface was connecting her to something vast and complex. "I know what you did," Kate said, her voice strangely calm. "I can see all of it." Zethar stepped closer, his weapon still pointed at her. "You see nothing, human. Your kind always speaks of courage in defeat, but courage means nothing against superior force." Kate smiled, though she did not feel happy. The information flowing through her mind was terrible and wonderful at the same time. She could see the destruction of worlds, the deaths of billions, but she could also see something else. Something the Zephyrians had never noticed. "You think you won," she said. "You think you destroyed us, but you do not understand what humans really are." More soldiers entered the lab, surrounding Kate completely. She should have been terrified, but the fear was gone. The machine had shown her something that changed everything. "Humans do not just fight," Kate continued. "We adapt, we learn, we become more than we were." Zethar made a gesture and his soldiers lowered their weapons. He was curious now, wondering why this last human seemed so confident in defeat. "Your weapons are silent, your ships are broken, your leaders are dead," he said. "What adaptation can save you now?" Kate looked at each of the soldiers in turn. Through the neural interface, she could see so much more than just their physical forms. She could see their thoughts, their fears, their connections to the vast network that linked the Zephyrian Empire together. "You connected us all," she whispered. "Every battle, every death, every moment of pain. Your own technology recorded it all and sent it through your networks. You gave us exactly what we needed." The machine behind Kate began to glow brighter. On screens throughout the lab, data scrolled past faster than any normal human could read. But Kate was no longer quite normal. "What have you done?" Zethar demanded. Kate stood up from the chair, the cables still connected to her neural ports. Her eyes reflected the light from the machines, making them seem to glow in the darkness. "I woke them up," she said simply. "All of them." The neural interface felt like lightning in Kate's brain. Information poured through her mind faster than she had ever imagined possible. She saw the last moments of Captain Bob Harrison as his ship exploded over New Terra. She felt the fear of Commander Linda Walsh as Zephyrian soldiers broke down her command center door. She experienced the final thoughts of Private Danny Miller as he protected a group of children on the colony's surface. But it was not just humans. Kate could see the deaths of the Altarians, a peaceful species that had been conquered 2 years ago. She watched the destruction of the Kepler Mining Union, brave workers who had tried to defend their asteroid homes. She felt the despair of the Centauri Federation as their beautiful crystal cities were reduced to rubble. Each death had been recorded, not intentionally, but as a side effect of the technology that connected every military person and civilian to their respective communication networks. When someone died while connected to these networks, their final neural patterns were automatically uploaded as emergency data. The Zephyrians had never bothered to clean this data from their systems. Why would they? Dead enemies could not hurt them. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had connected all their conquered territories through one massive subspace communication network. Every death, every final thought, every last moment of consciousness had been flowing through their own systems for years. Kate could process this information because her brain was working differently now. Dr. Rodriguez's machine had not just connected her to the network. It had changed how her neurons functioned, allowing her to think at speeds that should have been impossible for a human mind. "You are different," Zethar said, studying Kate carefully. His soldiers remained alert, but they seemed confused by what they were seeing. "What has happened to you?" Kate looked at the War Prime, and for a moment she saw him not as an enemy but as a being who had never truly understood what he was fighting. "I can see your memories too," she said, "through your neural implants. You were not born evil, Zethar. Your people were once explorers, not conquerors." The alien commander stepped back, his weapon rising again. "You cannot access Zephyrian military networks. Our encryption is beyond human technology." Kate smiled sadly. "Your encryption works against human technology, but I'm not using technology anymore. I am using something else." She closed her eyes and reached out with her enhanced consciousness. The data streams around her became visible, flowing through the air like rivers of light. She could see the neural patterns of every Zephyrian on the ship, their thoughts and memories laid bare. But there was more. Much more. Kate began to understand that consciousness was not limited to living brains. Every intelligent being that had died while connected to a communication network had left traces behind. Their neural patterns, compressed and stored in databanks across the galaxy, were like seeds waiting to grow. Kate reached out to these patterns and began to wake them up. The first to respond was Admiral Jake Collins. His pattern had been stored in the Defiance computer when he died. Kate felt his presence join with hers, his tactical knowledge and leadership experience becoming part of her enhanced awareness. Kate, his voice echoed in her mind. What did you find? She shared her discoveries with him instantly. Collins understood immediately. My God, he whispered. Every species, every person they killed, they are all here. More patterns began to activate. General Lisa Parker brought her strategic brilliance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez added her scientific knowledge. Captain Harrison contributed his piloting skills. One by one, the digital ghosts of humanity's finest minds joined together in Kate's consciousness. But humans were not alone. Kate reached out further, touching the stored patterns of other species. The Altarians had been philosophers and artists. The Centauri had been master engineers. The Kepler miners had possessed an incredible understanding of physics and space. Each species brought something unique to the growing network. Their individual strengths combined, creating a form of consciousness that no single race could have achieved alone. Sethar and his soldiers watched in growing alarm as Kate's appearance began to change. Her skin seemed to glow with a soft light, and data streams became visible around her body. Her eyes reflected displays that existed only in the digital realm. This is impossible, one of the soldiers whispered in their own language. Kate heard and understood him perfectly, though she had never learned Zephyrian before. The network gave her access to the memories of every person who had ever been forced to learn their conqueror's language. Nothing is impossible, she replied in flawless Zephyrian. You taught us that when you showed us what you could accomplish through conquest, but you never asked what we might accomplish through connection. She turned to Zethar, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of billions of the dead. Your empire spans half the galaxy. Your communication networks reach every world. You have conquered. Your technology connects every soldier, every administrator, every citizen. You built the greatest communication system in galactic history. The War Prime was beginning to understand. You are using our own networks against us. Not against you, Kate corrected. Through you. Every Zephyrian has neural implants for communication and data access. Every member of your species is connected to the same network that holds the consciousness patterns of everyone you have killed. Kate reached out with her enhanced abilities and touched the minds of Zethar's soldiers. She did not try to control them or cause them pain. Instead, she simply showed them what she saw. The soldiers stumbled backward as alien memories flooded their minds. They saw new terror through human eyes. They experienced the fear of Altarian children as bombs fell on their cities. They felt the desperation of Centauri artists as their culture was destroyed. Stop, Zethar commanded, but his voice was shaking. What are you doing to them? I am showing them the truth, Kate said. Your people have been warriors for so long that you forgot what you were fighting for. You conquered to prove your strength, but strength without purpose is just destruction. The neural patterns in the network were growing stronger. Kate could feel millions of consciousness awakening, each one adding to the collective knowledge and experience. They were not seeking revenge. They were seeking understanding. Kate looked directly at Zethar, and for the first time, the proud War Prime saw fear in his own reflection in her glowing eyes. You wanted to know what adaptation could save me now, she said. The answer is evolution, not just for humans, but for everyone. The ship around them began to change. Lights that had been red shifted to soft blue. Computer systems that had been locked to Zephyrian control began responding to Kate's will. The very air seemed to vibrate with invisible energy. "Your empire ends today," Kate said, but her voice was gentle, not threatening. "Not through conquest, but through transformation. You are about to become something better than you ever imagined possible." Zethar raised his weapon, but his hand was shaking. "I will not let you destroy us." Kate smiled with the wisdom of countless species. "I am not here to destroy anyone, I am here to save everyone, starting with you." Zethar's soldiers dropped their weapons as alien memories continued to flood their minds. They saw themselves through the eyes of their victims, felt the pain they had caused, experienced the fear and desperation of countless conquered peoples. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the weight of what they had done. Kate watched them with compassion rather than satisfaction. The network of consciousness growing in her mind did not seek to punish the Zephyrians. It sought to help them understand. Through the enhanced awareness that Dr. Rodriguez's machine had given her, Kate could see that the Zephyrian soldiers were not evil. They were trapped in a culture that valued only strength and conquest. "Make it stop," one soldier begged in his native language. "I cannot bear to see what we have done." Kate knelt beside the soldier, her movements causing streams of data to flow around her like liquid light. "The pain you feel is not punishment," she said softly. "It is awakening. For the first time, you can see beyond your own experience." She placed her hand on the soldier's forehead, and instantly his anguish began to fade. Kate showed him something else from the network, the moments of joy and love that existed even in conquered worlds. Children laughing despite their circumstances. Families finding comfort in each other. Artists creating beauty in the darkness of occupation. "Life is more than conquest," Kate whispered. "Your people once knew this. I can see it in your oldest memories, buried beneath centuries of war." Zethar still held his weapon, but he had not fired. He was watching his soldiers with confusion and growing fear. "What have you done to them?" Kate stood and faced the war prime. Through the network, she could access the stored consciousness, patterns of every Zephyrian who had ever died while connected to their military systems. She saw their history, their culture, their gradual transformation from peaceful explorers to galactic conquerors. "Your people discovered faster than light travel 800 years ago," Kate said, her voice carrying knowledge that should have been impossible for a human to possess. "Your first expeditions were missions of discovery and wonder. You wanted to meet other species, to learn from them, to share knowledge and culture." Zethar's weapon wavered. "You lie. We have always been warriors." "No," Kate replied, accessing deeper memory patterns. "You became warriors because you were afraid. The first alien species you met tried to destroy you. The Vorthan Empire attacked your colonies without warning, killed millions of your people. You survived only by becoming stronger, more aggressive than your enemies." She showed him the memories she had found buried in the deepest archives of the Zephyrian network. The original Zephyrian colonies had been peaceful places, filled with scientists and artists and philosophers. The transformation into a military culture had been born from necessity, not choice. "You forgot that the Vorthons were not all aliens," Kate continued. "You let fear turn you into the very thing that had tried to destroy you. For 8 centuries you have been fighting a war that ended long ago." One of Zethar's soldiers looked up at his commander with new understanding in his eyes. "War prime," he said hesitantly. "I can see it too. The old records, the original colonies. We were not always like this." Kate felt the network expanding beyond the ship. Through the Zephyrian communication systems, she was making contact with consciousness patterns across the galaxy. Not just the recently dead, but older patterns that had been stored and forgotten for decades or centuries. The Altarians had been a species of philosophers and teachers. Before their conquest, they had spent centuries studying the nature of consciousness and reality. Their knowledge flowed into the network, providing new understanding of how minds could connect and share experience. The Centauri had been master engineers and builders. Their consciousness patterns brought knowledge of how to construct not just physical structures but mental and social ones as well. They understood how to build connections between different types of minds. The Kepler miners had possessed deep knowledge of quantum physics and subspace mechanics. Their understanding of how information could travel through folded space became crucial to Kate's growing abilities. Each species that joined the network brought their own unique gifts. The Syrians contributed artistic vision. The Proxima colonists added agricultural wisdom. The Tau Ceti researchers brought scientific methodology. Together, they formed something greater than the sum of their parts. Kate could feel her own consciousness changing as the network grew. She was still human, still Kate Morrison from Detroit, but she was also something more. She carried the knowledge and experience of dozens of species, thousands of individuals, millions of years of combined learning and growth. "This is what your empire made possible," Kate told Zethar. "By connecting all your conquered worlds, by linking every species through your communication networks, you created the foundation for something unprecedented. A galactic consciousness that transcends individual species and cultures." The War Prime was beginning to understand the scope of what was happening. "You are creating a weapon that could destroy us all." Kate shook her head. "Not a weapon, an evolution. The network does not seek to destroy or conquer. It seeks to connect, to understand, to help each species become the best version of itself." She reached out through the network and began making contact with Zephyrian minds across the galaxy. Not just soldiers, but civilians, scientists, artists, children. The network did not force itself upon them. Instead, it offered them a choice: remain isolated in their own experience or join something larger. Many Zephyrians recoiled from the contact, their warrior culture making them suspicious of any attempt at mental connection. But others, especially the younger ones and the scientists, were curious. They allowed the network to show them glimpses of other perspectives, other ways of thinking and being. On the conquered worlds, the enslaved populations began to stir. The network gave them hope by showing them that they were not forgotten, that their cultures and knowledge lived on in the digital realm. More importantly, it began to coordinate their actions, allowing them to work together in ways that had never been possible before. Kate felt a massive shift in the galactic communication networks as more and more minds joined the growing consciousness. The Zephyrian Empire's own technology was being transformed into something they had never imagined: a bridge between species, a tool for understanding rather than domination. "Your people have a choice," Kate told Zethar. "You can fight this change and be overwhelmed by it, or you can join it willingly and help shape what comes next." The War Prime looked at his soldiers, who were staring at him with eyes full of new awareness. They had seen the truth of their history, felt the pain of their victims, and begun to understand that there were alternatives to conquest. "What would you have us become?" Zethar asked quietly. Kate smiled, her glowing eyes reflecting the data streams that flowed around them. "What you were always meant to be: explorers, teachers, builders. The network can show you wonders beyond anything your empire has ever conquered. But first, you must let go of the need to conquer it all." Through the growing network, Kate could sense a shift beginning across the galaxy. The consciousness patterns of the dead were awakening, and the minds of the living were starting to connect. The transformation she had begun would spread to every world, every species, every individual connected to the galactic communication grid. The Zephyrian Empire was about to become something entirely new. Reports flooded into the Zephyrian High Command from across the galaxy. On Altair Prime, the enslaved population had begun moving with perfect coordination, as if guided by a single mind. On the mining worlds of Kepler 7, workers were sharing knowledge instantly, solving engineering problems that had puzzled their overseers for years. On Centauri Beta, the conquered artists were creating works of impossible beauty, their creativity enhanced by connection to minds across space and time. Emperor Vaxon stood in the center of his command chamber aboard the massive dreadnought Dominion Prime. He was ancient by Zephyrian standards, having ruled the Empire for over 3 centuries. His body was kept alive by advanced technology, and his mind was sharpened by direct neural connection to every major system in the Empire. "How many worlds are affected?" he asked his advisors. General Korex, his military commander, consulted streams of incoming data. All of them, Emperor. Every world with a significant population connected to the communication network is showing signs of this phenomenon. The Emperor's black eyes reflected the holographic displays that surrounded him. Reports showed the same pattern everywhere. The dead were somehow influencing the living, and minds that should have been separate were working together as one. The human did this, Vaxon said quietly. One human survivor has destabilized an empire that spans half the galaxy. Admiral Nexus, his naval commander, stepped forward. Our fleets remain loyal, Emperor. We can bombard the affected worlds from orbit, destroy the communication networks that allow this spreading. Vaxon was quiet for a long moment, processing information at superhuman speeds. Through his own neural connections, he could sense something changing in the network. The dead were not truly dead anymore, and the living were no longer limited by the boundaries of their individual minds. Show me the human, he commanded. The main display activated, showing Kate Morrison aboard the dying human vessel. She sat in Dr. Rodriguez's chair, cables still connected to her neural ports, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Around her, Zethar and his soldiers stood motionless, their own eyes beginning to show the same strange illumination. She has converted War Prime Zethar, General Corex observed. His entire boarding party is under her influence. But Vaxon could see deeper patterns in the data. No, he said slowly. They are not under her control. They are choosing to join her. There is a difference. The Emperor accessed deeper levels of the communication network, using his ancient authority to peer into systems that even his highest commanders could not reach. What he found there made him understand the true scope of what was happening. Kate Morrison had not created a weapon or a virus. She had created an invitation. The consciousness network she had awakened was offering every connected mind a choice: remain isolated in individual experience or join something greater. The network could not force anyone to join, but it could show them what was possible if they chose to connect. She is offering them evolution, Vaxon whispered, and they are accepting. On worlds across the Empire, the transformation was accelerating. Zephyrian citizens were beginning to experience memories and emotions that were not their own. They felt the grief of parents who had lost children in the conquest of their worlds. They experienced the desperation of species facing extinction. They understood for the first time the true cost of their empire's expansion. But the network also showed them something else. It revealed the beauty and wonder that could exist when different species worked together instead of fighting. It demonstrated knowledge and capabilities that no single race could achieve alone. It offered a future where strength came not from domination, but from cooperation. Many Zephyrians resisted at first, their warrior culture making them suspicious of any form of mental connection. But others, especially the younger generation and the scientists, were fascinated by what they were experiencing. They allowed the network to guide them to new forms of understanding and creativity. The network is spreading, Admiral Nexus reported. Our own communication systems are being transformed. If this continues, we will lose control of the Empire within days. Emperor Vaxon studied the patterns of change spreading across the galactic map. The network was not conquering worlds in the traditional sense. Instead, it was offering them a new way to exist. Worlds that joined the network did not become part of Kate Morrison's domain. They became part of something that belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. Prepare my personal fleet, Vaxon commanded. I will meet this human myself. General Corex looked surprised. Emperor, that could be dangerous. If she can convert War Prime Zethar, she might be able to affect you as well. Vaxon smiled grimly. Exactly. I must understand what she offers before I decide how to respond to it. The Emperor's flagship was the most advanced vessel in the Zephyrian fleet. The Dominion Prime was more than a warship. It was a mobile command center equipped with technology that could coordinate military operations across entire star systems. Its neural networks were so sophisticated that they bordered on artificial consciousness. As Vaxon's fleet made its way toward Kate's location, reports continued to arrive from across the Empire. The network was not violent or destructive. Instead, it was transformative. Species that had been enemies for generations were beginning to understand each other. Zephyrian overlords were starting to question the necessity of their dominance. Enslaved populations were discovering that their conquerors were not monsters, but beings trapped in a culture that had forgotten its original purpose. "The human is not fighting us," Admiral Nexus observed as they traveled through hyperspace. "She is healing us," Emperor Vaxon nodded slowly. Through his neural connections, he could feel the edges of the consciousness network touching his own mind. It did not try to force its way in or control his thoughts. Instead, it simply offered him glimpses of perspectives he had never considered before. He saw the Empire through the eyes of its victims. He felt the fear of parents watching their children taken as slaves. He experienced the despair of entire species facing extinction, but he also saw something else: the potential for redemption, for transformation, for becoming something greater than what they had been. "She terrifies me," Vaxon admitted to his commanders. "Not because she threatens to destroy us, but because she offers to save us, and I am not certain we deserve salvation." The network growing around Kate Morrison was unlike anything that had ever existed in the galaxy. It was not a hive mind that eliminated individual thought, nor was it a controlling intelligence that dominated other minds. Instead, it was a connection that enhanced individual consciousness while allowing it to participate in something larger. Each mind that joined the network retained its unique perspective and personality. But it also gained access to the knowledge, experience, and wisdom of every other connected consciousness. A human scientist could suddenly understand Altarian philosophy. A Centauri engineer could experience the artistic vision of a Syrian poet. A Zephyrian warrior could feel the compassion of those he had once considered enemies. As the Dominion Prime approached the location of the human vessel, Emperor Vaxon made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of preparing for battle, he ordered his weapons powered down and his shields lowered. "If this human can show War Prime Zethar a new path," he said to his commanders, "then perhaps she can show one to me as well." The ancient emperor who had ruled through conquest for over 3 centuries was about to discover what it meant to rule through understanding. And Kate Morrison, the last human survivor, was about to meet the ultimate test of her evolved consciousness. Emperor Vaxon's fleet arrived at the location of the human vessel like a storm of metal and energy. The Dominion Prime was massive beyond human comprehension, its hull stretching for kilometers and bristling with weapons that could destroy entire worlds. Yet as it approached the small damaged human ship, the Emperor kept his weapons silent. Kate Morrison sensed his arrival through the consciousness network that now spanned the galaxy. She could feel the ancient Emperor's mind, sharp and brilliant despite his centuries of life, but also weighed down by the burden of countless conquests and destroyed civilizations. "He comes," she said to Zethar, who stood beside her in the transformed laboratory. The War Prime's eyes now held the same gentle glow as Kate's, reflecting his connection to the growing network of consciousness. "Will you try to convert him as you did me?" Zethar asked. Kate shook her head. "I did not convert you. I showed you what was already in your heart. The network cannot force change upon anyone. It can only offer the opportunity for transformation." Through the vast communication arrays of the Dominion Prime, Emperor Vaxon reached out to make contact with Kate. His voice echoed through the speakers of the human vessel, carrying the authority of centuries of absolute rule. "Human," Vaxon said. "I am Vaxon the Eternal, Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire, conqueror of 700 worlds. I have come to understand what you have done to my people." Kate stood, the neural cable still connected to her ports, streams of data flowing around her like living light. When she spoke, her voice carried the wisdom of millions of consciousness patterns from across the galaxy. "I have done nothing to your people that they did not choose for themselves, Emperor Vaxon. I have simply shown them what was possible when beings choose connection over isolation, understanding over conquest." The Emperor's image appeared on a holographic display in the laboratory. He was tall and imposing, his ancient features marked by the weight of centuries. His eyes held intelligence that surpassed most species, but they also held something Kate had not expected: curiosity. "Show me," Vaxen said simply. Show me what you showed them. Kate reached out through the network, gently touching the edges of the Emperor's consciousness. She did not force her way in, but offered him a glimpse of what the network had become. She showed him the combined knowledge of dozens of species, the shared experiences of billions of individuals, the potential for growth and understanding that came when minds worked together instead of against each other. Vaxen's first reaction was resistance. His warrior culture and centuries of isolation made him suspicious of any attempt at mental connection. But as Kate's gentle touch continued, he began to see things he had never imagined possible. He experienced the universe through human eyes and saw the wonder that his species had lost long ago. He felt the philosophical insights of the Altarians and understood questions about existence he had never thought to ask. He shared the artistic vision of the Centauri and saw beauty in places where he had only noticed resources to be exploited. Most importantly, he saw his own people as they truly were. Not the perfect warriors they pretended to be, but individuals struggling with fear, doubt, and the weight of their own actions. The consciousness network showed him Zephyrians who secretly questioned the necessity of their conquests, who mourned for the civilizations they had destroyed, who longed for a purpose beyond endless war. Your empire is not strong because it conquers, Kate said gently. It is strong because it connects. Your communication networks span half the galaxy, linking billions of minds across impossible distances. You built the foundation for the greatest collaborative consciousness in galactic history, but you used it only for coordination and control. Through the network, Vaxen could see the transformation that was spreading across his empire. On world, after world, Zephyrians and their former subjects were beginning to work together. The network did not eliminate the differences between species, but it helped them understand that diversity was strength, not weakness. What would you have me become? Vaxen asked, echoing the question Zethar had posed days earlier. Kate smiled, her human warmth somehow reaching across the vast distances of space. What you were always meant to be. A builder of bridges, not walls. A creator of understanding, not fear. A leader who guides not through dominance, but through wisdom. The Emperor felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The consciousness network was offering him a choice that no conqueror had ever faced. He could resist the transformation and try to maintain his empire through force, knowing that the network would continue to spread and eventually encompass every connected mind in the galaxy. Or he could choose to join the network willingly and help shape what came next. If I join your network, Vaxen said slowly, what becomes of my empire? It becomes something greater, Kate replied. Not an empire built on conquest and fear, but a community built on cooperation and mutual respect. The network does not seek to destroy what you have built. It seeks to transform it into something that serves all species, not just one. Vaxen looked through the data streams flowing around his flagship and saw the future that was already beginning to emerge. Former slave worlds were sharing their knowledge freely with their former conquerors. Zephyrian scientists were learning from alien researchers they had once considered inferior. Artists from dozens of species were collaborating on works of unimaginable beauty. The transformation was not perfect or without conflict. Some Zephyrians still resisted the network, preferring the familiar brutality of their warrior culture to the uncertainty of change. Some conquered species struggled to forgive centuries of oppression, but the network provided a framework for understanding and healing that had never existed before. I have ruled for over 300 years, Vaxen said quietly. I have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. I have made decisions that affected the lives of trillions of beings. If I join your network, will I still be myself? Kate's expression was filled with compassion. You will be more yourself than you have ever been. The network does not erase individual identity. It enhances it by connecting it to something larger. You will still be Emperor Vaxen, but you will also be part of a galactic consciousness that values wisdom over power, understanding over conquest. The ancient emperor made his choice. Slowly, deliberately, he opened his mind fully to the consciousness network. The transformation was immediate and profound. For the first time in centuries, Vaxen felt truly connected to other beings. He experienced empathy not as weakness, but as the foundation of true strength. The change rippled through the Zephyrian Empire instantly. With their emperor's full participation in the network, the remaining resistance crumbled, not through force or coercion, but through understanding. Zephyrians across the galaxy felt their leader's transformation and chose to follow his example. Kate Morrison, the last human survivor, had accomplished something that no military force could have achieved. She had not defeated the Zephyrian Empire. She had transformed it into something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. Years later, Kate would stand on the observation deck of a vessel that had once been a Zephyrian warship, now transformed into a research and exploration vessel crewed by representatives of dozens of species. Her eyes no longer glowed with otherworldly light. The network had grown beyond her, connecting billions of minds across the galaxy, and no longer required her enhanced abilities to maintain itself. She was human again, but humanity itself had become something greater. Along with every other species in the galaxy, humans were now part of a community that valued diversity, promoted understanding, and worked together to explore the wonders of the universe. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from destroying enemies, but from helping them discover that they never needed to be enemies at all. Kate Morrison had done something that terrified the galaxy. She had shown them what they could become when they chose love over fear, connection over isolation, and understanding over conquest. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, full of possibilities that no single species could have imagined alone.